Zay Flowers, Malik Neighbors, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Brian Robinson Jr. Those are just some of the names we talked about in last week's Booms video. So who's going to go off in week 3? Let's find out. Before we set those lineups for fantasy, let's also set your picks for Underdog. That's right, if you haven't tried Underdog yet, it's a great time to sign up. You can start with this free pick for week 3. It's Aaron Rodgers just going higher than 0.5 total yards on Thursday night. That's right, you get that free pick if you sign up right now as a new customer using code ENDGAME when you sign up. Take advantage of this new customer special and still that 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it now. Just make sure you use code ENDGAME when you sign up. Let's start out with the running back that some people might be fading, but you definitely shouldn't.
Definitely do not fade Travis Etienne this week. Like, we were a little nervous about him last week, right? Tank Bigsby got pretty heavily involved in week 1, but then Tank Bigsby left last week with that shoulder injury. Doesn't sound serious. He may play this week, but even if he does, I am not worried about Travis Etienne this week, because even if Tank Bigsby does take some carries, Travis Etienne is still getting the incredibly valuable goal line carries and the incredibly valuable pass catches, the targets in this offense. And you look at this matchup on the road against the Bills, this does not scream boom week, but I really like Travis Etienne in this matchup because you look at week 1, James Conner. No, he didn't have a big rushing game against this defense, but he had 3 catches for 33 yards. Last week, Devon Achane, 7 catches for 69 yards. I think the Jaguars are going to need to throw the ball a lot in this game, with Evan Ingram potentially sidelined, Christian Kirk MIA, Gabe Davis doing Gabe Davis stuff, a rookie out there. I think we're going to see a lot of Travis Etienne in the receiving game, and that's going to give him tremendous value and tremendous upside to boom. Plus, he's going to get those goal line carries. He's going to have a chance to score. Even if Tank Bigsby is out there, I'm not scared off Travis Etienne this week. I think Travis Etienne going to have a big week this week on the road against the Bills on Monday Night Football. So don't be scared about Etienne. I mean, he's been good this year. There's no reason to really be worried about him. But this week especially, don't be worried. Get him in your lineup.
All right, now it's funny because I was all set to talk about Brandon Ayuk anyways. You know this, Chris, before the Deebo Samuel injury news hit. I mean, this just seems like a great spot for him to bounce back. And now Deebo Samuel is not only out for this week, but multiple weeks. They've got to get Ayuk involved, but this is a great spot for him anyways. Ayuk has not been good the first 2 weeks, but Ayuk at least has been out there. He's been involved. He's gotten 5 targets in each game, just hasn't really connected. You got to think he is a little rusty from holding out during the preseason. That's probably going to be out of his system now. They're going to need him, especially with Deebo and Christian McCaffrey both out. And this is a perfect matchup for him because the Rams have also been disappointing, especially on defense. So they just gave up a 130-yard, 2-touchdown output game to the rookie Marvin Harrison, who did nothing in week 1. And in week 1, you got to remember that before that, they gave up Jameson Williams' best game ever, 121 yards and a touchdown. That's right, both these 2 young receivers have had their career games against this Rams defense. Now, Brandon Ayuk might not have his best career game because he's had a few good ones, but look, he is set to go off here. If you have Ayuk and you've been worried, you cannot. You absolutely have to fire him up. He could go ballistic in this game. The Rams are just reeling, especially in that secondary, and they just don't have much on offense nowadays to put up a fight. So if you have Brandon Ayuk, definitely get him in your lineup. How about another young wide receiver who hasn't quite put up that big game just yet?
No, Chris Olave has not put up the big game yet, even though the Saints have had 2 big games. But this could be the week because, like, there's some things here that they're going to start going the other way for the Saints. They're not going to be just rolling teams like they've been rolling them, sitting the starters in the fourth quarter, scoring on, one huge play. I mean, Derek Carr only attempted 16 passes on Sunday, but 6 of those passes went to Chris Olave, and I think it was missed by a lot of people. He got tackled really at the inch line. He almost had a touchdown in that game, despite Derek Carr only throwing 16 passes. There's going to come a game here where they're not just going to be able to, roll the other team and only attempt 16, 20 passes. And it could start this week against the Eagles. I know the Eagles are coming off that disappointing loss. This is still a good team, but not a good secondary. I mean, we just saw Darnell Mooney had a big game. Drake London had a pretty nice game. The week before that, the Packers, Jaden Reed had a huge game against this secondary. I think this is the game where we finally see the Saints kind of come back down to earth a little bit, and Derek Carr has to throw it closer to 30 times a game, and they're not able to just score on a huge play, and they're going to have to actually move down the field, and that is going to be great for Chris Olave. And I have talked about this offense, how much pre-snap motion, how much play action they use. This is why Derek Carr has been so good. Last year, Derek Carr had the highest QBR of any QB when using play action. The Saints just use it at the lowest rate. This year, it's the highest rate. I think this is the week in this matchup where Chris Olave finally gets to take part in this incredible feast the Saints are having on offense, and he booms this week. So don't give up on Olave. He was close to a big game last week. I think this week it happens.
Now, during draft season, I was a little skeptical of Tony Pollard because not only did we think that this backfield would be a 50-50 split between Pollard and Tyjae Spears, they literally came out and said it's going to be a 50-50 split. And that just wasn't true. In week 1, it was Pollard clearly leading the way, got so many more touches. And now in week 2, Tyjae Spears, an ankle injury. Now, Spears may be fine. Who knows if he'll play in week 3? I don't think it even matters because what we've seen is that Pollard is the lead back. And not only has he been the guy who's getting the touches in that backfield, he's been getting some good opportunities. In fact, according to Hayden Winks of Underdog, in week 2, his fantasy usage in week 2 was 6th among all running backs. And so far on the season, 2 games, he ranks 7th in expected fantasy points among all running backs. That's pretty good. This is a guy who still does have some juice left. He can break off some big runs, as we saw in week 1. He's getting the goal line work because they don't really have a goal line back. It's not like Spears is, any bigger than he is. And he's a good receiver out of the backfield. Look, Tennessee's offense isn't super exciting. I get that. But this matchup is pretty exciting because they get the Green Bay Packers. So far, what we've seen in 2 games from the Packers, they've given up a 100-yard rusher both times. Now, granted, they had to play Saquon Barkley and Jonathan Taylor. They're both pretty good. I get that. But still, this run defense has not limited them in any way. And I think this is going to be a game that's won on the ground either way. I don't care who wins, but I know that if I have Tony Pollard, I want him in my fantasy lineup because he could get even more opportunity and have his best game yet. And I also know that if I am on Underdog doing my picks for week 3, I'm going to take the higher on Pollard because right now it's 56.5 yards. I'm going higher there. And if you haven't tried Underdog yet, you can take that pick or any other pick you like and combine it with the new customer special, which is a free pick. It's Aaron Rodgers just getting 1 yard. Yep, you get a free pick just for signing up along with any other pick. You can win big right away. Just make sure when you do sign up on Underdog, you use promo code ENDGAME because it gets you that new customer special. And of course, it also gets you a deposit match of bonus cash up to $1,000, plus all the other promotions they always have going on. It's a great time to try Underdog if you haven't yet. All right, bounce back time. Let's talk about some receivers who really let us down in week 2.
All right, I'm not going to lie. This one's not for the faint of heart, and even I am like, wasn't even sure if I wanted to put this guy in the Booms video, so don't feel like I'm saying Amari Cooper is a must start or anything this week, but if you're looking at your lineup and maybe you got Debo out, Puka out, and you're like, man, I need some upside, maybe this is the week Amari Cooper finally booms. Look, it's been there for him so far this season. You look at it on the season so far, he ranks 5th in air yards among all wide receivers and 11th in expected fantasy points. And if you go back to week 1, he dropped an easy touchdown. Last week, he dropped a huge pass. If he makes those catches, we're probably not feeling too bad about Amari Cooper right now. And now he gets a home matchup against the Giants. There's nobody on this defense that I worry about taking Amari Cooper out of the game. I mean, this really comes down to Amari Cooper catching the ball and Deshaun Watson not being awful. And look, I'm not going to say Deshaun Watson looked good last week, but he at least looked like he's making some progress. And now against the Giants, he could make even more progress. I mean, Jaden Daniels didn't have a huge game against this defense, but he threw for almost 250 yards, and they're not asking him to do anything but dink and dunk. I think Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson can hopefully connect on a big play here, can hopefully connect on a touchdown. The opportunities have been there for Amari Cooper to boom. He's a good player. It's not like we've never seen this guy boom before. This is kind of what this guy does. He booms or busts. So, look, if you need upside this week, and you're feeling brave, go ahead, throw Amari Cooper in your lineup. Everything is there for him to boom. Now it just needs to happen.
Hey, I completely understand. It's all about opportunity. Let's look at a guy who's getting that opportunity. Didn't come together for George Pickens in week 2. I think it does in week 3. Got 25.6% target share so far, and that is one of the best marks in the league among all wide receivers. Now, of course, targets only matter if they're caught and if they go for significant yardage. It wasn't there last week, 2 for 29. You're thinking, what are we going to trust Pickens for? And this matchup actually looks terrible for him because you're going against the Chargers, who have been a really good defense. They got that ground game going. Jim Harbaugh is doing exactly what he set out to do. So, yeah, the Chargers have a pretty good defense, but let's keep in mind, they've had a really good defense for 2 games against the Raiders and the Panthers, okay? So keep that in mind. Look, I don't expect Pittsburgh to go off offensively. They don't need to. They just need George Pickens to get involved, and he will definitely be involved. And let's also keep in mind, last week, the numbers were bad for Pickens. They really should have been much better. He had a 51-yard pass, a deep shot. He caught that pass, and it was taken back by a holding penalty. And he also had a touchdown that was called back on a penalty for the offense. So he really should have had a pretty big game. And then there's also that defensive pass interference that he drew. So I know these near misses, they don't help you after the fact, but this is a guy who can always hit that home run. And I think this week he can definitely do it. So I'm taking a chance. I'm keeping Pickens locked in my lineup. Now you may know that on Monday night, we're going to get 2 games in week 3. And the last one, it's going to involve a couple of players that we like quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't usually put a tight end on the boom video because, I mean, hello, brand here, but also how often does a tight end really boom in fantasy? But if I'm going to put a tight end on the boom video, it's going to be one going against the Commanders, and it's going to be one that just had 91 yards on 9 targets. I'm talking about Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's right, 7 catches, 91 yards on 9 targets in week 2. The leading receiver, the leading target getter on this team. Now, he didn't have a touchdown, but I don't even care. You give me 7 catches, 91 yards. I don't even need a touchdown from my tight end. But this is the Commanders. Maybe this week he gets it. Remember back in week 1, he did have a touchdown, except he fumbled it when he was falling to the ground. He didn't fumble it. He just didn't hold on to it and didn't count as a catch as he was going to the ground. So it's not like he doesn't get chances to score here. And look, Jamar Chase, yes, he'll probably be more involved. He'll probably take advantage of this Commanders secondary. But there's enough here for him and Gesicki and T. Higgins. I mean, who knows what we're going to get from T. Higgins, if we're even going to see him. Andre Yosevich, I mean, okay, 2 touchdowns last week, but nothing outside of that. If you're looking for a tight end this week, and a lot of us are, I think Mike Gesicki has to be your number 1 option on the waiver wire. Look, there's a chance it's a complete trap. It's Mike Gesicki. He's trapped us many times before, but getting the targets in an incredible matchup against the Commanders at home, I mean, everything is there for Mike Gesicki to have a huge week at tight end. So definitely my favorite streaming tight end this week. And I think Mike Gesicki might even be worth a flex, even though he's a tight end.
Oh, all right. Well, you're going a little off brand. I am too. That is same exact game. You know what I'm going to say? This week, I love Joe Burrow. I'm going to start Joe Burrow, no questions asked. Yeah, I've had my concerns about that entire Bengals team and Joe Burrow specifically. But let's start with the obvious. It's the Commanders. So yeah, there's that. I mean, the Commanders, besides now looking for a repeat as the worst secondary and pass defense in the league, they've given up 6 passing touchdowns in the past 2 weeks to Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones. So I feel pretty good about Burrow, but I will say I do feel better about Burrow because he showed something last week on the road in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. Pretty good defense there. I mean, it wasn't great, but 258 yards and 2 touchdowns against Kansas City. That's pretty good, especially considering T. Higgins still out. He had to rely on the tight end position a lot. And this is a good thing that Mike Gesicki, the 2 other tight ends, Andre Yosevich, these guys are at least contributing. So I feel good enough about Burrow that against this Commanders defense, yeah, I'm definitely going to start him. And I will say the whole thing with the wrist, everyone's starting to panic. Obviously, it's not that bad based on the way he played last week. And I haven't even seen the fact that with this particular type of injury, it should just strengthen and get better as time goes on. He doesn't have to do anything to it. It will get better and better, which means he should get better and better. But look, the best cure is this Commanders defense. You got Burrow. Don't overthink it. Just start it. If you haven't caught all our start-sit videos for every position yet this week, along with waiver wire, trade advice, and more, it's all right here in this playlist.